Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
You know that feeling when someone shows up for you just when you need it most? That's what Uber is all about. Not just a ride or dinner at your door. It's how Uber helps you show up for the moments that matter. Because showing up can turn a tough day around or make a good one even better. Whatever it is, big or small, Uber is on the way. So you can be on yours. Uber, on our way.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. I am chuckling at Kieran, but not this time because of his hilarious Terry Wogan impression as he did 3-2-1 go, but as literally 90 seconds ago, Kieran said, right, I think we're all good to go, and then we disappeared for a minute.
Yes. We're not tech kings, are we?
You'd think that we're doing it twice a week here. We should be able to. Only one button that we have to press. It was lovely to see you last night, Kieran, at our end of season quiz.
Yes, great fun.
Taking part. It was very good fun. We had an impromptu. I mean, how rock and roll is that, Kieran? An impromptu football finance Q&A afterwards.
Yes.
What value of money?
All the stuff that we can't say on the podcast.
So, yeah, some of the stuff that we unfortunately do say. It's Newsday, Kieran. The fixtures are out. I imagine, I haven't checked them properly, but I imagine Brighton have got 4 home games to start, including Narnia in the middle, I'm guessing, and the cast of Strictly Come Dancing as their 5th and first away game. Is that right?
Our first away game is at Everton's magnificent new stadium.
Oh, what a treat for you. That'd be fantastic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely made up.
Wonderful.
A great day out.
And Sunderland got West Ham, I believe, their first game. It's just a cracking test for them. It's exciting already, isn't it? What's the opposite of exciting? There's lots of words that the opposite of excitement, Kieran, and I think FIFA, unfortunately, are learning quite a few of them via social media this weekend. The Club World Cup, I think, as predicted, when there are teams from Central and South America playing, there's a fairly good turnout. Not for the rest, though, Kieran.
No, I think it's fair to say that despite FIFA's claims on the website that it's been a fantastic success, that has not been borne out. The match between Ulsan and Mamelodi Sundowns had an official crowd of 3,412, and I think that included all the comps and the other, but for people not turning up. And I think it's a real shame for the players. We've said this in the past for when we've been looking at WSL matches and should they be moved to sort of the host stadium, the main stadium of the club. There's both pluses and minuses. It's fantastic that these clubs have qualified for the competition, but the attendances have been mixed. Tickets have effectively been given away as well. And I think there's been a number of operational issues from the FIFA end. So by all accounts that they were given the opportunity, I think MLS said, look, we've got some sort of dedicated 20, 25,000 seater stadiums. And because it is a vanity exercise of Gianni Infantino, he says, no, we want the bigger stadiums. So 20,000 people in a 70,000 seater stadium looks pretty shabby, and that's what we saw with Chelsea. And it's allowed the critics to have a field day. The tickets are effectively, if you can get a ticket for $4, if you're a bunch of students, that's absolutely fantastic. It sounds now as if FIFA are moving fans so that they are sat where the cameras are pointing. That all sounds to me to be a little bit Big Brotherish. If there's low crowds, then fine. If you think that nobody's gone to the ground with a phone camera and won't be putting out the actual pictures, I think that's very naive of FIFA. It's started to become politicized as well. We know Gianni Infantino is sort of in a love who's this strange bald man relationship with Donald Trump. But the fact that FIFA are dropping the anti-discrimination and anti-racism messages from their publicity, I understand why they've done it. They want to be seen to be in with the sort of the culture wars of the United States, but it doesn't reflect particularly well. And this morning, it looks like our very good friend Tebas at La Liga, he said, get rid of the competition. It's a waste. Exterminate.
Yeah.
And he doesn't mince his words. So, all in all, it's not been great. If you're fancying watching Manchester City tonight, that their opponents are 55-1 in a 2-horse race to beat City. That is indicative of something's not quite right. And you and I, we're old enough to remember World Cup in 1974. With Zaire when they lost 9-0. I went to South Africa to watch the World Cup in 2010, and I saw Portugal beat North Korea, and it was a bit of a thumping. At the same time, I've seen Brighton lose 7-0. So it doesn't necessarily that a bad result is indicative, but there's something not quite well thought out. And despite FIFA's protestations, and as we've said to FIFA when they said, you're being very harsh on us, come on the show and let's have an adult debate about it. We're not here to score points, as we are football fans. And the love of the game means that you don't want to see embarrassing issues such as this.
I was going to say we were quite harsh on Gianni Infantino in the quiz last night, Kieran, but we weren't harsh, we were childish.
Yes.
Which is the irony being that you refer to him in one of the questions as Gianni Infantile. Gianni Infantile, which is just as infantile of us to call him that as
absolutely. But we're not running football. And,
that's true.
You're a professional comedy writer and comedian, so it's these are the things we've got to do.
And he does look like a privileged 4-year-old child. I mean, it's also interesting that both him and Trump are clearly adept at covering up lower tendencies and making them look like they're huge, because they've both been doing it this weekend. I mean, it's interesting that we mentioned this in the quiz last night as well. Those Bayern fans that were there on Sunday, unveiling a huge tifo, referring to the events of 10 years ago when FIFA headquarters were raided, leading to the imprisonment of some FIFA staff, saying it needs to happen again. The director quite clearly was told not to cut to it at any future part of the game.
Yes.
But I mean, that 10-0, I mean, the things would. That's not fair to the players as well. I mean, I know, people are trying to spin it and say, well, those Auckland players will be able to say they're on the same pitches as Michael Elise saying some of the but they lost 10-0. That's kind of big, and I don't care how much money they get for it. And any tournament where the second game is a 10-0 draw, any tournament where, as you said, Man City's opponents are 55-1, there's something needs to change, and of course you want smaller teams, smaller countries to be represented, but you've got to find a way where they're represented properly, not by getting thrashed by a load of superstars who clearly were going through the motions. It's also very interesting, it seems, and this is totally anecdotal, but talking to American friends and friends who live in America, that the vast majority of the fans of clubs like Chelsea and Bayern haven't travelled over. They're based in the first place, which is possibly a worry for the World Cup next year. People are more likely to travel for a World Cup, I imagine. But at the moment, America's not top of many people's destination list, and people don't want to pay a lot of money to travel to America from Germany to watch a 10-0 drubbing. So
Yes.
they're also, I mean, it's very hot. I mean, that's not Gianni Infantino's fault. I mean, it's the fact that it's hotter than hell. I mean, you can make your own analogies there, but some of the fact that some of the stadium are haven't got a roof on
and you've got matches kicking off at midday.
You've got matches kicking off at midday in the middle of summer. It's not good, and as each minute goes by, it's like Ed said, it's got 1936 Olympics vibes about this tournament, and yet at the end of it, we will be told in no uncertain terms it's the best tournament ever to take place, and that what we need is more teams taking part in the next one, essentially.
Yes, that's my fear. It all comes back to money. If somebody says to Gianni Infantino, in 4 years' time, we will underwrite the losses, as has happened for this tournament, then expect it to be back and bigger and not necessarily better.
Well, also, Kieran, football fans and their ability to rustle up a conspiracy theory out of any situation. The mere fact that Bayern Munich played a full-strength team led to people going, oh, well, obviously FIFA have had a word, haven't they? They've made them play a full-strength, because you wouldn't have expected them to play a full-strength team against the second biggest team in Auckland. Let's face it, they're not even Auckland's most successful team. And yet they did play a full-strength team. The argument would be it's very difficult for a team like Bayern not to play a full-strength team because all their players are good. But they did start with their essentially their first 11. And I don't believe for a minute that's because FIFA told them to, but Chelsea certainly did as well. So we'll see. I'm expecting Man City to do the same. At the other end of the scale, Kieran, and I hate to say this because Sheffield Wednesday has been creeping up on us, and it's gone up another notch.
Yes, I don't think to any great surprise, Sheffield Wednesday failed to pay the May wages on time. Looking at various reports coming out of Sheffield newspapers, and some of the journalists there are doing they're doing a great job for something which they weren't trained for. They did it because of love of football rather than a love of the shenanigans related to Mr. Chansiri. If you go to the EFL embargoes website, Sheffield Wednesday, sadly, are the only club to currently be under an embargo. My understanding is it's going to be a 3-window embargo. This is for the late payment of wages. Some of those players have still not been paid. Others have. It all gets very messy and complicated. That might be connected as to if you're a player who's out of contract at the end of June. I don't think there's a huge incentive in the mind of Chansiri to pay the wages because there's no skin being lost. The Professional Footballers Association have got involved. According to FIFA rules, I think if you're late twice paying wages, especially if I think it goes to more than a couple of weeks, then your contract becomes null and void. So any transfer value in player contracts will be lost, which is perhaps again why some players are being paid. It's in pure self-interest of trying to extract money from the transfer market. Does this mean that Sheffield Wednesday cannot sign players? The answer to that is no, that they can sign players, but they cannot sign players for a fee. And the rationale, again, if you go to the EFL website, I think they set this out in a very fair way. They say, why should those clubs who have paid wages on time be penalised if Sheffield Wednesday can go into the transfer market and spend money on players but can't find the money to pay wages? So they can sign players on Bosmans, they can sign players on loans, but they can only pay those players on loans up to the amount of money that the player is getting from the host club. So you can't have a promising 18-year-old on, let's say, $1,000 a week, and Sheffield Wednesday say, well, come and play for us and we'll pay you $3,000 a week. So that's where we are. Chansiri is under pressure. Our good friend Matt Slater has been reporting that there is an interested party. I'm certainly aware of interested parties as well. And when we did our live show in Rotherham, it was quite clear from talking to some of the Owls fans, both during and after the gig, that there was a lot of interest because it's a fantastic opportunity. Big city, big fan base, traditional football. Hillsborough needs a lot of investment. Nobody's denying that. So therefore, it now comes down to Chansiri being sensible in terms of the price he agrees. He's got to accept he's going to lose a lot of money in terms of his ownership of Sheffield Wednesday. But I do think that there is an exit route. Don't try to humiliate the guy. Let him live. Let him leave with a degree of dignity, and a negotiated exit can be made.
A couple of things off the back of that, Kieran. Unless employment law has changed radically since I was involved in it, I know admittedly a long time ago, regardless of what sort of games Chansiri wants to pay in terms of transfer fees and allowing players' contracts to run down, if a player's got a contract till the end of June, it's unlawful to not pay that player his wages until the end of June, no matter what you want to do in terms of shifting him on. And secondly, if it was only non-playing staff that hadn't been paid, would they still be subject to an embargo, or is that those rules only applied to when the playing staff are not paid?
My understanding, it's a football debt-related issue. So that's why sometimes you do see players being paid and non-playing staff not being paid, which is it's an emotional thing. But ultimately, these decisions are voted on by EFL club owners, so you can't necessarily criticise the staff at the EFL, who I'm sure want to have some form of equality in terms of the discrimination of individuals. So it's not good. As for those players having a legal position against the club, yes, they do, but they're still not going to guarantee just because Sheffield Wednesday have broken a contract. You've got to then go through the appropriate channels and to pursue the money that you've not been paid, which takes time, which incurs legal fees. And in the interim, we don't know what's going to happen with Chansiri in terms of his ownership of Wednesday.
And would it be a deterrent to a new owner that there's possibly a large outstanding wage bill? Or is that the sort of money you're talking about and the sort of millionaire you're talking about buying the club? That's not a problem?
I don't think it would be a problem, because if I was on the buy side, I would simply knock it off the price I was prepared to pay. So, it's a bit like if you go to a house and you say, well, look, you've got 3 windows which are broken there. You've agreed the price of the house. Okay, what's the price of those 3 windows? I'll knock it off. So everything is everything is contractually dealt with.
And we have discussed this before, Kieran, but to be honest, I've seen you on so many different Zoom things that I can't remember which one it was we discussed it on. So just to clarify, which is what that ex-referee used to do, clarify. Why has Chris Foy sent somebody off again? Let's ask him. Let's clarify. What would you say would be a reasonable, fair asking price for Sheffield Wednesday, and what do you think it will go for?
Well, he started off asking for over 300 million, then dropped that to 150. The last asking price I saw was somewhere in the region of 70 to 75 million. Based on my calculations, I would say 40. You might get a wee bit more, but a lot would depend upon how the deal would be in terms of the stadium, because at present, Chansiri owns the stadium via another company, and he charges Sheffield Wednesday £2.5 million a year in rent for a stadium which is not in the greatest of order. So I think you'd have to bundle everything together and say somewhere in the region of 40 to 45, perhaps have some form of earn-out clause such that if Sheffield Wednesday are promoted to the Premier League in the next 3 years, then you could have an add-on there, and you quite often see that in terms of club transactions.
And presumably, selling the club is his only way out of his financial predicament.
That appears to be the case. Nobody knows how he generates his money, and we're aware that his family are involved in sort of John West Tuna canning. There's been some interesting pronouncements from John West to sort of distance themselves from Chancery in terms of sort of public pronouncements and so on. So it all seems very messy. Where he gets the rest of his money from, that's never been confirmed.
It's a question that once took up a lot of time on a train journey to Edinburgh. Who would win in a fight between John West and Captain Birdseye? It was conversation exclusively among men. You would imagine, as you could imagine.
Yes.
We've seen the fixtures come out. We're recording this on Wednesday morning, Kieran. The fixtures came out at 9 a.m. this morning, although, of course, at around 7:30 a.m. this morning, I was woken up by many WhatsApp groups going on and me grumpily going, how do you know that? And it turns out they're all right. But as a little hors d'oeuvre, we might be seeing Tottenham playing Man United in court.
Yes. Tottenham have, or had, as their official, I think, 4x4 car, which looks like it was designed in the 1970s, partner. They are issuing proceedings against Ineos Automotive, owned by our very good friend Offshore Jim. So he said, I'm going to revolutionise the 4x4 market, and in the whole of 2024, across the whole of Europe, he managed to sell 847 cars.
Wow.
Which is 16 a week.
Yeah.
Across the whole of Europe. So that's not a lot of cars. I went to my good friend's company's house to say, well, am I being harsh here? So I managed to get the accounts of Ineos Automotive, who have, by all accounts, they've cancelled their sponsorship deal with Spurs. And Spurs have said, well, hold on, we've just been talking about football players. A contract is a contract is a contract. So therefore, you've got a legal obligation. On sales of revenue of £501 million in its most recent accounts, Ineos Automotive managed to lose £430 million.
Crikey!
So that's almost we get £1 from car sales, and it's costing us £2 to run the business, which probably puts perhaps that's why Jim Ratcliffe wanted to own a football club, to get that feel of authenticity across the rest of his business. So Spurs are clearly not happy about this, and it has been publicised on a variety of places that they are going to pursue this. We've also seen a fallout between Ineos and the All Blacks in terms of sponsorship there. It does look as if there's a retrenchment. Some of the public utterances coming from Ineos blaming global issues on their own finances. I think those are valid comments.
Yeah.
But that was the Europe that they wanted. So I'm not quite sure what they're moaning about.
There must have been some sort of cancellation clause in that contract, surely, Kieran, between two high-profile companies.
Yes, I think what it looks like, Ineos have said, we are walking away, and we're not paying up for the presumably however long the remainder of the deal is. So Spurs aren't happy, and they're perfectly entitled to say, we signed the contract in good faith. We expect you to honour it in good faith.
If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/promo. Go to shopify.com/promo.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Also, and this is a more general question, Kieran, about the one thing everybody said about Ratcliffe when he came in was like, yeah, okay, he hasn't got experience of football, but he's a very, very savvy businessman, and clearly he is. You don't make that sort of money without having some sort of business acumen. But yet, you hear about things like this, you hear about the All Blacks, but you kind of think, well, maybe he's not as savvy as we thought he was, or maybe he's realised that trying to get yourself involved in sport, whether it's rugby, sailing, or football, is as you warn people every week, a completely different business, isn't it?
That's right. You need transferable skills if you want to come into the football industry. And the history of football is littered with people who have been fantastically successful in their own line of business, and they deserve an element of credit for that, although the culture of Ineos at Manchester United, I'm hearing from a variety of sources that it's one of intimidation, bullying, just general unpleasantness in terms of the rather sort of snidey way that they deal with people. And football's a people industry. Now, could that be directly linked to performances on the pitch? No, it can't. Can it be indirectly linked? I think there is a tenuous link. I always say to people, you can set a tone. So if the first person you see each morning has got a beaming smile on their face, whether that's the cleaner, whether that's the receptionist, whether that's the person that's mowing the grass, that does create a ripple effect. In any working environment. If the working environment is one of fear, if the working environment is one of, I don't know whether I'm going to have a job in a week, in 3 months' time, especially given that many members of staff at Manchester United have an emotional investment. They love Manchester United. Many of them are fans. And they would probably feel doubly bad because A, it's affecting them on a personal basis, and B, they want Manchester United to be held in high esteem. And there's an awful lot of apologists out there for Ratcliffe and the Merry Men, but I'm not one of them.
First thing I see, Kieran, whenever I go to work on the price of football, is your big old cheery grinning face. And no matter what sort of mood I'm in, it always makes me happier. Then I hear Finlay yawn and switch around in his basket. You go, it's not a bad world after all. Talking to club owners, sort of, the two stories involving John Textor and therefore involving my club, Crystal Palace, to a degree. Now, this first one, Kieran, he's preparing, I understand, Eagle Football for a public offering in the US, but I gather from various points he shouldn't be doing that while he's also touting Eagle Football around for a private sale of certainly the Crystal Palace part of it.
Yes, make your mind up, John. He does appear to be a bit like a pinball in a pinball machine, moving from crazy idea to crazy idea. If you want to put Eagle Football Holdings for an IPO, then you need to go and put forward a tender document. So therefore, people know what they're investing in. So are they investing in a company which owns 45% of Crystal Palace Football Club, or are they not? What are the assets being acquired? What are the outstanding debts? If at the same time you're touting it around for a private deal, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but you can't ride both horses. So yeah, I think the IPO in the United States, I don't know who would touch Eagle Football Holdings because the numbers don't look great. And I always say to people, if you're making an investment decision, should I or shouldn't I go in for it? Look at the quality of management, because that's what you are delegating your money to be managed by those people. John Textor has made an awful lot of money, but he doesn't impress me in terms of his level of professionalism, in terms of behaviour. So I'm not a financial advisor, but I wouldn't touch it. It's difficult to see where the profits are coming from, and it's difficult to see what the overall strategy of Eagle Football Holdings is. I went on to Eagle Football Holdings' website before we recorded the show.
Boastful, Kieran, isn't it? Is the word I would use. Boastful.
Yeah. Not updated for over a month.
Yeah.
So, if you're supposed to be a big organisation and you're not updating the news about your business on a regular basis, that the first he's tried to distance himself from Palace from the perspective of the multi-club ownership. Well, if the first thing you do when you go onto Eagle Football Holdings, you've got a picture of Crystal Palace holding the FA Cup, look, as I've said, that's a footballing issue. It's absolutely brilliant for you as a Palace fan, for all of the Palace fans I know, and so on. But if you want to be business savvy, then just use your brain, for heaven's sake. So that's slightly shambolic. And then there's a further issue in that Burnley, they sold a player called Vitinho to Botafogo, which is Eagle Football Holdings' Brazilian club, and they have registered a complaint with CFB. And let's face it, those letters CFB for people of our age still means so resonates back from Mexico in 1970 and Pele and Jairzinho, Gilberto, and so on. So they have registered a complaint. I believe that CFB have passed this on to FIFA. Now, what FIFA could do is that if they uphold the complaint from Burnley, they could instigate a transfer ban, which would prevent Botafogo from selling players. And it appears, based on social media and gossip, but there seems to be a fair wave of opinion, that Botafogo are looking to sell 2 or perhaps 3 players to Nottingham Forest. And here we get this strange circularity. Nottingham Forest, who are once again controlled by Mr. Marinakis, they have, of course, submitted a letter to get clarification as to Crystal Palace's position in European competitions next season. And then you've got this relationship. So Marinakis, Botafogo, Olympiacos, Nottingham Forest, Textor. There's
Lyon.
There's Lyon.
They bought a lot of Lyon and Forest have done a lot of transfer business.
Very, very, very strange. So there seems to be a good personal relationship, certainly at ownership level. So why can't that be extended to the 2 clubs that are in the Premier League?
What does the CFB in this circumstance stand for, Kieran? Sorry.
CFB is the Brazilian Football Confederation.
Oh, sorry. So it is
Football de Brazil.
Sorry, it is the same CFB. Sorry, I thought we were talking some sort of FIFA thing there. Fine, okay, I got you there. You say Marinakis is once again in control of Forest. Have I missed something? Or
No. He, they're NF Football Holdings, which is sort of the investment vehicle, which was put into a blind trust. He's no longer in the blind trust, and Mr. Marinakis, as he is perfectly entitled to do, is now formally back in charge.
Okay, let's have that discussion off air then about how that affects. Never mind. We'll wait till UEFA make the decision before the trouble with Textor is, as somebody said, he's got enough money to run 3 clubs. The trouble is he's got 5 clubs. Is the issue. I'm glad you laughed because it was me that said it, but it does seem that he's not just spinning plates, but he's putting the plates on different poles, isn't he? He's trying to convince the world that he has got enough money, and what he's doing is shifting money about to make sure it looks like they've all got money. But you can say, hang on a second, that plate's fallen off. No, I'll put that one back. So it's an interesting, but another story with Burnley, and again it plays into the discussion we had last night, and we will have in a moment when we talk about Drogheda, is that UEFA, the multi-club thing's not going to go away, and Burnley are looking to become more part of it.
Yes, well, the MCO train has not only left the station; it's halfway to. It's certainly going far faster than HS2 in terms of reaching whatever the destination is. And I think we had this discussion in terms of MCOs. MCOs are a theoretical experiment which have not proven to be successful in any way, shape, or form, apart from allowing groups to shift players and profits in a similar way to what we see with conglomerates who mysteriously make all of their profits in Liechtenstein and the Republic of Ireland, which just so happen to be the two countries in the European Union where the rate of corporation tax is lowest. Pure coincidence, only a cynic would suggest that it's a manipulation of the tax rules, of course. Burnley's owners, ALK Capital, they're the people who came up with the app to spot football talent, and fair play. Burnley were promoted, and they were deservedly promoted last season. So the owners will say that our strategy is working. They acquired Burnley via a leverage buyout, which is similar to that of Manchester United, and they're now looking to buy a stake in Espanyol in La Liga. And again, we've sort of summarised revenue benefits. Burnley and Espanyol, I can't see any. Knowledge exchange possible. Burnley in the Premier League will be generating more money than Espanyol in La Liga. So therefore, having Burnley in the Premier League for a longer period of time is beneficial. How can we help to achieve that? Well, one of the problems we've got, and this is not an anti-Brexit comment, it's simply a matter of fact, is that you cannot recruit players at the ages of 16 and 17 from Europe and bring them to the UK. I was talking to somebody last week about the increased interest in MCOs in Scotland, and it was revealed that it's actually easier to bring a promising player to Scotland than it is to England, because the Scottish FA and the Scottish government are more relaxed about freedom of movement than the English government. So it all starts to get very, very complicated, but it's being done for a harvesting of young talent reason as much as anything else.
And here's another interesting relationship between Spain and England, Kieran, which I was fairly certain belonged to the past.
Yes. Anthony, who I think it's fair to say his career at Manchester United hasn't lived up to expectations. He cost £86 million. He's 3 years into a 5-year contract, so his book value for PSR profits and losses is 34 million. He went on loan to Real Betis, played very well by all accounts, scored goals, made plenty of assists, became a bit of a fan favourite. Manchester United are looking to avoid making a loss, so they're looking to get back that £34 million for him this season. Betis haven't got the money. I think there's other clubs that are interested, but whether that will crystallise into a formal offer, we don't know. So what it looks like is it could be a loan with an obligation to buy for about 17 million in a year's time. So in a year's time, Anthony's book value will be 17. You sell him for 17, so that you don't incur a loss if you're Manchester United. But in order to preserve Manchester United's position, that they would have a 50% sell-on clause. So effectively, it's shared ownership, but it's not shared ownership. It's shared ownership in that if Anthony is a fantastic season, Real Betis, if they've got an obligation to buy or an option to buy for 17 million, they get a player who's would only be 26 in a year's time. If they sold him for far more, Manchester United would benefit from that. And we often talk about sell-on clauses, but sell-on clauses are normally in the region of 10 to 15. So it's being quoted as shared ownership because if it is going to be 50%, it neatly circumvents the dual ownership rules which currently exist in football.
I was going to say, because in no uncertain terms, dual ownership of a player is not allowed, is it?
Yeah. I mean, that sort of, we often refer to it as third-party ownership in the sense that a player's registration is held, but it's held not just by the football club, but often by an investment vehicle or an agent who therefore automatically gets a share of any future transfer fees. And that has been outlawed in Europe, but not everywhere else for a period of time.
It's always very easy to tell whether someone's from an Irish Catholic background, Kieran, because even though there's clearly no H in his name, you would still say Anthony. It's like, you say, no, it's Anthony. No, Anthony.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at polestar.com.
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can finish the bachelor's degree you started in 19 months and under $19,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by pace, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
More US interest in a famous English football club, Kieran, but with a Welsh legend thrown in.
Yes, this is following a fairly recent pattern of high-profile front-of-house stroke celebrity investment in football. And this is a US-based private equity company looking to acquire control of Plymouth Argyle, who have just been relegated, as we know, from the Championship. And part of the reason for that is that Plymouth had the second lowest wage budget based on the most recent set of accounts. So I don't think it was a huge surprise, but they did really well to get to the second tier in the first place. And this private equity company, has by all accounts, has signed up with Gareth Bale. People say, well, is he putting a lot of money in? In my opinion, he will not be putting, it will be a nominal sum at best. See, there'll be little financial commitment from him. I think it's quite similar to the Swansea and Modric scenario. That was me waving at the postman. Just leave the letter outside, but he didn't spot me. Therefore, we've now got a very giddy dog. So Gareth Bale, its name is being linked. This seems to be a way forwards. My concern is, why is private equity getting involved in football? Yeah. But private equity has never done any good for any industry apart from the owners. You associate it with job losses, you associate it with cost cutting, and streamlining, and all of these sort of technical phrases and words. But they're not football fans, and a US-based private equity company. Are they looking for their traditional 3 to 5 year exit route? The answer to that is probably no. I think they're looking at a longer return on investment period, but they're not football fans, and that's always my concern. Why are they interested in the third tier of English football as well?
One of my ambitions, Kieran, you reach a certain age where you have few ambitions left. I'd like to own part of a racehorse, but I'd also like to be talking about Barking FC when Finley starts doing that. That would make me laugh. I love that triumphant shake as well. That's told him. That's told the poster. He's got a deep bark for a little dog, hasn't he? He's not a big fella.
He has, yes. Yeah, and the amazing thing is, he knows the difference, because my next door neighbour, and we got a shared drive, he's just leaving to go to the cricket. And Finley can tell his footsteps on the gravel compared to those of the postman.
Wow. And
that's why he's up and ready and showing the postman who's boss. And then when the postman arrives, he'll bring him a slipper. If open the door for the postman, he's not ferocious in any way, shape or form.
You've spoken like a true pet owner. Oh, he's so clever, this dog. He can tell the difference between the next door neighbour. Somebody's got to get it right with Plymouth eventually, Kieran. I mean, you ask why they get involved in a League One club, but it's the potential at Plymouth Argyle, Kieran. I know my mate Bristol Mark, who I mentioned last night. Not all football nicknames are, Bristol Mark is a Plymouth fan, but don't ask. He's from Bristol. That's why he's Bristol Mark. He hates me using this phrase because it's next door to Sleeping Giant, isn't it? Potential, but it's a club with an amazing potential, and there is you would think for a savvy investment company, there is money to be made out of it. If that's the only reason they're in it is to make a return, that somewhere along the line, someone's going to get that club into the Premier League.
Yeah, potentially, and if that happens, absolutely fantastic. I'm still delighted that we played there in between.
We did.
Muse
Rod Stewart
and Rod Stewart.
And Muse,
yes,
yeah.
Price of Football.
Yeah.
were the meat in the sandwich.
We were on the poster. Rod Stewart, Tuesday night, Rod Stewart, Wednesday night, Price of Football, Thursday night, Muse. I imagine it was less busy. The ground staff didn't have as much to do on the day we weren't on a massive stage on the pitch either from the start. Further down the scale, Kieran, Farsley Celtic have a fairly high profile goalkeeper who was manager and is now owner.
Yes, we have mentioned Farsley Celtic once before, and the reason for this was that the owner, Paul Barthorpe, resigned, I think, as chairman earlier in this year. He owns the stadium, but the pitch was in such poor condition they were not allowed to play fixtures at the home ground this season. So therefore they've been playing at Bradford Park Avenue. Again, you and I are old enough to remember Bradford Park Avenue being part of the 92. They've also been playing at Buxton. Attendances, they were in the National League North last season. Some of the attendances were below 100 because Farsley Celtic's sort of Leeds-based club. David Stockdale, who is a former goalkeeper at Fulham in the Premier League, at Brighton Hove Albion as well. The year we were promoted, he was absolutely brilliant, and so on. He became manager. I think he's become seduced. I think there was a genuine fear that Farsley Celtic might cease to exist. So he's taken over. He's got involved with an investment company. They were 25 points adrift last season at the bottom of the National League North. They're going to have a rebudget. I think they're going to have to drop down a couple of divisions as well because they've been denied access in terms of steps 1 to 4. So they're having to drop a couple of divisions. But I know David. I've taught David because he was doing his courses at the PFA, and he's just like us. He's just football crazy, and he says, "I know it's a daft thing to do, but I don't want this club to go out of existence," and fair play to him. So I think they are looking for external investment as well. I think they've inherited a lot of debt, as well as the ongoing issues, but they are hopeful of getting a 4G pitch and moving forwards. And what I'd say to Leeds fans, if Leeds aren't playing at a weekend, pop down to Farsley. We've often said a non-league day out is a great day out, of course. And you'll be helping a local club as well.
Technically, none of our business, Kieran, but do you know how much David Stockdale would have paid to take control of Farsley?
I presume it's £1.
Right, okay.
I can't see any value in the club, but it's the fact that you're taking over existing financial commitments is the main issue there. So I think it's his family are committing to it as well, and I think they've got some third-party investment lined up.
Oddly enough, Kieran, for the first time ever, Palace fans have spent a lot more time talking about Drogheda United this week than they have ever done in the past. I think this is a really sad story. If it proves anything, it proves that CAS don't muck about in the time they take to reject an appeal.
That's right. Drogheda won the FAI Cup, which meant that they qualified for the UEFA Conference League for 25-26. But Drogheda are 100% owned by an American organisation called Trivella, who also own the Danish club Silkeborg, who I think finished 7th in the Danish league. And the way that it works is that league position trumps cup victory. But there are significant differences. In my opinion, and I think in the opinion of many other people, that Trivella owned 100% of Drogheda and 100% of Silkeborg. So it does look like an open and shut case as far as the MCO rules are concerned. So UEFA expelled Drogheda. That was upheld by CAS. by cash, should I say. I think you've also got to look at the Irish Football Association, the FAI, because I was on looking at one of the Irish newspapers this morning, and in October 2024, UEFA sent round a circular setting out circumstances under which MCO arrangements had to be dealt with in advance, such as setting up the blind trusts and so on. And the FAI, by all accounts, failed to send that to Drogheda themselves. So this is going to cost the club probably somewhere in the region of €500,000. Even if they win no matches, they've got that. And for a club which is losing money in the FAI, as are many teams, it's just an unnecessary slap in the face. It seems incredibly harsh because, again, you look about it from the perspective of the players and of the fans. There will be some big teams, coming into that competition, and the fact that you get 8 fixtures against 8 different teams, it increases the excitement and the variety even more. And for the people, the fans, the owners, and everybody connected to Drogheda, you just feel that the clubs, well, not the owners should have done a bit more than this. You've got to feel huge disappointment.
I mean, God knows, Kieran. Well, I say everyone knows the rules. It seems the rules are a removable feast, and I currently know far more about the UEFA qualification rules than I ever hoped to have learnt in previous years. And I know we have people from UEFA who listen to this pod, and this is not a personal attack on UEFA for the most part. I think we've agreed recently they're doing some very good work, but I simply can't see the point of doing this to Drogheda United. I simply can't see the point. It's a club that's not going to win the Conference League. It's unlikely that it will win any games in the Conference League. But in terms of a bit of money for a small club, a bit of interest, a bit of development, helping grassroots football in the local area, this just seems... Find a way around it, for the love of... Yeah. Even if you have to make sure that Drogheda don't play Silkeborg, you can't imagine any circumstances in which Silkeborg may qualify for the semi-finals if Drogheda do them a favour by drawing against Nottingham Forest or Brighton or whoever. It just seems an unnecessarily harsh sanction.
Yes, and especially with the new Swiss model.
Yeah.
And you've got, therefore, I think there's 32 teams in the Conference League, so you've got 16 matches kicking off simultaneously. Trying to get a fudge result which would work for everybody, I think is very difficult. UEFA's concern, and I get where they're coming from. They want to preserve the integrity of the game. They want everybody to say that when I watch the match on television or when I attend a match, as far as I'm concerned, everybody connected with this club wants that club to win, or to get a result in some way, shape, or form. And MCOs muddy those particular waters. But as you rightly say, this is a lost opportunity for a club that's done really well, and it takes away the joy of winning the cup.
It does muddy those waters, Kieran. I agree, but at the same time, if I was a footballer, I'd be furious at that, impugning my integrity like that. Because we know there are cases in the past, maybe of people not to, but they're few and far between. And you're denying those players the chance, possibly their only chance for a lot of them, to play in Europe, to travel to grounds they would never go. I just can't. I just think it's disproportionate, Kieran, as far as I'm concerned. It really is.
Especially as I know a former manager who was working overseas, and he said this was not done for gambling reasons. This was done because there was a deal between two owners of clubs, one of which the owner of the club came in to the dressing room half an hour before match kicked off and said, right, we've agreed we're losing this match 3-1.
Oh, right, okay.
And it was said, say, shortly before kickoff, so therefore, and nobody was allowed to use their mobile phones to tip off people. So there's the gambling companies didn't pick up on it, and I'll tell you afterwards who the manager was. But it is indicative of that not everything is as good as even, and it's impossible to prove as well. unless you get a lot of people agreeing to snitch to UEFA's reporting bodies.
I mean, it could happen. A lot of things could happen. I could get hit by a runaway giraffe when I go down the betting shop today. Who knows what could happen? But I just feel, and this is nothing. Even if Palace weren't in this situation, I would feel exactly the same way. To be perfectly honest, I just think UEFA should be able to find ways around this. They're very clever people, as you keep saying. Our last two stories about women's football, Kieran. It's very difficult to get two positive stories about women's football at the same time. So the first one, unfortunately, isn't.
Yes, Blackburn Rovers. What we've seen, I think, now with a couple of clubs, as far as the WSL is concerned, is that because there are minimum financial commitments in the Championship, that some club owners are saying, we don't think we're going to bother to support the club. So Blackburn Rovers are going to make 20 staff members redundant as far as their women's team is concerned. That's a shame, because there are lots of positives as far as the sort of the NUCO and the progress being made. But one of the consequences of those types of decisions is that your cost base is going to rise. If the revenue's not coming in, the clubs are losing money. If you get into the WSL itself, you'll start to recover some of those losses. But the Venkies, who, it has to be said, aren't overly popular with Blackburn fans, and the Venkies' financial circumstances don't seem to be as good as they were a few years ago. Look like they've made this decision, and it affects people.
Well, it affects not just the 20 people made redundant. It affects their partners, their friends, their family. It affects all sorts of people. But the good news is that it looks like the WSL will be easier to get into.
Yes, and I think this is quite a good solution. There has been talk about expanding the WSL. It looks like it's going to go up to 14 teams now from 26, 27. There was a fear that there would be no relegation, and that would therefore reduce jeopardy at the bottom of the division. And we've said that to keep interest in football, you need to have jeopardy. But it looks now, as I think, that the way that they're going to get around that is there's going to be sort of 3 clubs coming up, and there's going to be a playoff between the side finishing bottom of the WSL and the side finishing third in the Championship to allow the expansion from 12 to 14 clubs. What we've got to make sure is that those clubs that are being promoted do have sufficient resources so that they've got a genuine chance of staying up, because otherwise, we started off with a criticism of FIFA that there's too much of a mismatch. There is a danger of huge gaps appearing between the finances of the sides at the top of the WSL, who have got owners with rich pockets and are also qualifying for European competition, and those clubs that are not, because watching your side getting hammered every week when you're trying to build up a fan base is a note for disaster.
Yeah. Don't forget, you can now join our Price of Football Club, where you'll get ad-free listening, bonus episodes, and more, and the Christmas quiz, Kieran, which will be the next one. That's one of the reasons I'm always so excited to do the end of season quiz, is you get that out of the way, and the next one's Christmas. It's the longest day on Saturday as well, Kieran. We're nearly as close to next Christmas as we are to last Christmas. These are happier days, even though they are too bloody hot. So you can do that just by going to priceoffootball.com, click on Join the Club to sign up today. If you have a question you'd like answered on our weekly question show, which is Tuesday, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. Don't forget, of course, you can follow us on Twitter, X. You can find us on YouTube. And if you'd like to buy our book, go to that same website, priceoffootball.com. We will be back on a Tuesday with our next questions episode. In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, a big thank you to everybody who came along to the quiz last night. It was good fun. Great to see so many people in shirts as well. It sort of has become sort of the way we do things, and the knowledge of some of our listeners is very, very impressive indeed. That's one way supporting us for a very small sum, and you do get all of those bonus issues as well. We do try to make sure you get proper value out of this. there's another way you can support the show, and that's to give us a review. Pop onto your app and just scribble down whatever you want. It keeps the algorithms of Spotify and Apple and so on, by all accounts, very, very happy. Doesn't matter what you would say. You could even say you would rather the show presented by Russell and Ron Mail of Sparks, because I'm going to see them tonight in London. And I am absolutely made it. They are absolutely amazing guys, 75 and 79 respectively. I can still remember the first time I saw Sparks on Top of the Pops and went, what's he doing on that piano? And they're brilliant as well. For anybody that's followed their career, they're more than just a couple of 70s singles. They are a great, great band.
Are they still doing that Penn and Teller thing where only one of them speaks?
No. Ron now does speak.
Oh, okay, fine.
He's very, very dry as well. He's a sharp cookie.
Right. Okay. Well, I always it's the same as Penn and Teller. Nice. Yeah. All right. Nice fellas. Good at magic tricks. Tricks, not magic. They can't do magic, as you keep reminding them. But the fact is that only one of them speaks as well. In that case, charge me half the ticket pricing. Frankly, I know it shouldn't work.
Well, the one that doesn't speak, he's got his own podcast. And I know what you're thinking. There's a problem there.
Where are you going to see them?
I think it's Hammersmith Apollo. Or is it Royal Albert Hall? I can't remember. I must check my ticket.
I think you probably should check, Kieran.
Yes.
They're in the same neck of the woods, but yeah, pretty so. I think one of my takeaways from last night's quiz, Kieran, which was great fun, was the fact that somebody revealed that they refereed a team that won the FA Cup. That old Carthusians are still going, and they still have FA Cup winners 1875 or whatever it was written on their shirt.
Well, I'm sure Crystal Palace will have that in 2175.
Well, there'll be a couple of old age pensioners with it on the back of their shirt, I'm sure. Yeah. FA. Yes. But it's note to older football fans: Grandad 69 is never funny. On the back of a shirt, it's never funny under any circumstances. You can stand there as much as you want, pointing at it with your thumbs. It's not funny. Simple as that. And I've got a very childish sense of humour that's still not funny. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.